The earth will be divided between three states, and the angels will descend from heaven. Albert the Great predicted when the bloody war will begin and end. Albert the Great is one of the most famous scientists of the Middle Ages, who was not only a philosopher but also a naturalist, theologian, and an occultist. His contribution to various fields of knowledge had a huge impact on the development of science and culture in Europe. No wonder he was called the Doctor of the Catholic Church. There's an opinion that Albert the Great was able to turn mercury into gold and could create from the precious metal a huge greenhouse and lifted mechanisms for the mines of Bavaria. One of the most interesting aspects of Albertus Magnus' life, Albert the Great, is his fascination with magic, the occult, the love of divination. Of course, this has nothing to do with, it shouldn't have anything to do with Christian doctrine. Now, he was convinced that magic was more and mere mystical practices than mere mystical practice, and that it could be used to foresee the future. It's curious that unlike the quatrains of the famous Nostradamus, the doctor's prophecies are more specific and accurate. Many of them belong, according to researchers, to our time. Scientist and occultist. A versatile person is sometimes said about people who succeed in everything, no matter what they undertake. This characteristic fully applies to Albert von Ballstede. He was born into an aristocratic family and possessed a huge fortune, which allowed him to avoid the need to do any work. However, instead of idleness, Albert chose science and began to interpret the philosophical works of Aristotle. He was also interested in physics, alchemy, geography, and the occult. There were persistent rumors that he had the ability to obtain gold from mercury and create golems, that is, artificial anthropomorphic creatures. Albert the Great left behind a multi-volume collection of works on various sciences. His books became a textbook for the studio in medieval Europe. But we are more interested in the deep prophecies of the famous scientist, theologian, and philosopher, which he recorded in the book Oracles. His fulfilled predictions. A huge prophetic gift allowed Albert the Great to look into the distant future, 1,000 years from November 15, 1280. Why this particular date? The fact is that the scientist and mystic offered to keep a record of future events from the moment of his death, and this happened on the indicated date. What has already come true from what was predicted by Albert the Great? For example, the discovery and development of the American continent. Quote, among the coming events is the opening of a large shore at the great distance from the Pillars of Hercules. These lands will be inhabited by the northern people who will make them a great Christian state, end quote, the famous scientist foresaw. Researchers believe that the prophecy refers to the United States, which has indeed become one of the largest and most powerful states in the world. Despite all modern trends, America is still a very religious country with strong Christian traditions. Another prophecy concerns Germany. She will stand on the edge of victory 3 times in a time span equal to 7 centuries. She will almost succeed in taking over the world 3 times, the clairvoyant believed. First, the Habsburgs managed to conquer almost all of Europe under the protection of the Holy Roman Empire. Then, at the turn of the 19th and 20th centuries, Germany decided to consolidate European leadership, and already in the middle of the 20th century, the Germans planned to take over the whole world. The Second World War became the result of these ambitions. What awaits us? So many of the prophecies of Albert the Great have already come true. This means that the likelihood that his remaining predictions will also come true is very high. In his book Oracles, the scientist clearly describes the future of mankind and even names specific dates. 7 to 8 centuries will pass after the death of Albert the Great, and people will conquer the moon and Mars. Mankind will not stop at this. There will be flights to other celestial bodies and even to other worlds. The philosopher and theologian himself described the cosmic epic of mankind in this way. As we know, a man stepped on the moon in 1967, almost 700 years after the death of the scientist. If we follow this logic, then the conquest of Mars should be expected in a couple of decades. Indeed, there are programs for colonization of the red planet which are already being implemented. The Christian mystic warned in his prophecies, a millennium after the death of Albert the Great, angels will descend from heaven as if in the time before the flood. Let me say that again. He said, a millennium after the death of Albert the Great, angels will descend from heaven as if in the time before the flood. After simple calculations, it becomes clear that this event should occur in the distant year 2280. But who will these angels be? Albert the Great, being a deeply religious person and theologian, clearly had in mind divine creatures. However, their description in the book Oracles is more like aliens. The prophet said the earth will be divided into three huge states. They will argue and be at enmity, and only the Almighty will be able to calm them down. The confrontation will end after a large island rises from the depths behind the Pillars of Hercules. According to researchers, this prophecy is about a geopolitical conflict between the superpowers, the United States, Russia, and China. Albert the Great foresaw this confrontation and was sure that peace is possible only after turning to God and faith. Well, the big island is most likely Atlantis, the appearance of which was expected by the ancient Greeks and the Egyptians. And this is on Solask. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Albert Magnus, or Albert the Great, about 12,080, also known as Saint Albert the Great of Cologne, Germany, a Dominican friar, philosopher, scientist, and bishop. Later, he was canonized as the Catholic saint. He was known during his lifetime as Doctor Universalis and Doctor Expertus, and later in his life, he was appointed to this name. Scholars such as James Weishaupt and Joachim Soter have referred to him as the greatest German philosopher and theologian of the Middle Ages. The Catholic Church distinguishes him as one of the 37 doctors of the Church. Now, I don't understand why he's called the Doctor of the Church and canonized as a saint when he was dabbling in black magic and calling up golems. Please leave your comments about this, and thank you for your support. This is according to Wikipedia as well. My Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.